The first time I saw my name carved into cold gray stone, I thought my eyes were deceiving me. The cemetery was quiet, too quiet, the kind of stillness that presses against your ribs and makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I had come there by accident, or at least that's what I wanted to believe. But deep down, something had been pulling me toward that place all morning, like a whisper only my soul could hear. I remember the chill in the air that day. It wasn't winter, but the wind bit through my shawl, as though it wanted to freeze the blood in my veins. I walked between rows of graves, some freshly dug, others ancient and forgotten, when my gaze fell on a small marble headstone near the far corner under the old willow. The name caught my attention before the dates did because it was my name. Margaret Ann Holloway. I stopped breathing. For a long time, I just stood there, staring at those letters. My mind raced, trying to reason, to rationalize, to find any explanation that didn't make me sound mad. There must be another woman with my name, I told myself. Someone else, some tragic coincidence. But then the dates registered. Born, the 12th of March, 1954. Died, the 3rd of October, 2022. That was my birth date. And the death date, October 3rd, was the day I had my heart attack. My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the tombstone for balance, feeling its cold, rough surface under my trembling hands. I remembered the hospital, the blinding lights, the feeling of slipping away, the beeping monitors fading, voices growing distant, the doctor's face leaning over me, shouting for something, then blackness. I thought I had survived. The nurses said I'd been lucky. My husband Daniel had held my hand every day of my recovery, or at least I thought he had. But standing there, staring at that stone, I wasn't so sure anymore. And then, just as I turned to leave, I saw him, Daniel, standing only a few feet away, holding a bouquet of lilies. My lilies, the kind I always kept in the kitchen window because I loved their scent after rain. He didn't see me at first. He was looking down at the tombstone, his lips moving, murmuring something I couldn't hear. I froze. My mind screamed to call out, but my throat went dry. Why was he here? Why was he visiting this grave, my grave? He knelt down and placed the lilies carefully at the base of the stone. Then, with a sigh so heavy it almost cracked the air, he whispered, "I miss you, Maggie, every single day." My heart thudded painfully. I wanted to scream, "I'm right here!" But the sound caught in my chest. He straightened, wiped his eyes, and turned, finally seeing me. For a second, his face drained of color. Then he blinked, shook his head slightly, as if convincing himself he was seeing a ghost. "Margaret," he whispered. "Daniel, what is this?" I choked out. Why is my name on that tombstone?" He didn't move. His expression was unreadable, shock, fear, guilt all tangled together like storm clouds over a still lake. Then, slowly, he took a step toward me. "Maggie," he said softly, "you shouldn't be here." I felt the world tilt. "What do you mean I shouldn't be here? Daniel, that's my name. Why does this grave say I'm dead?" He closed his eyes, breathing heavily. "Please, come home. I'll explain everything." But I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the earth. The scent of lilies mixed with damp soil made me dizzy. Explain it now. His jaw clenched. He looked past me like he was expecting someone. Then he grabbed my arm, gently but firmly, and said, "This isn't the place." I yanked away. "No, Daniel. This is exactly the place." Something inside me broke open, then the part of me that trusted him, the part that believed in the man who made me tea when I couldn't sleep, who brushed my hair when I was too weak to lift my arms after surgery, who promised he'd never leave me. That man wouldn't fake my death. That man wouldn't carve my name into stone. And yet, here it was, cold, permanent. I turned back to the tombstone. My tombstone. There was even a small engraving at the bottom, "Beloved wife and teacher." Forever in our hearts. My breath hitched. My students used to call me Mrs. H. I'd taught for 30 years at the local elementary school, and Daniel knew how much that line meant to me. He'd put it there. He'd written my epitaph. The air felt thick, like walking through water. I could hear my own pulse pounding in my ears. "I buried you," Daniel said suddenly, voice low, trembling. "You were gone, Maggie. You were gone for 2 days. The doctors said his voice cracked. They said you never came back." I stared at him, my mind spinning. "Then what am I now?" I whispered. "A ghost? A mistake?" He took another step forward, his eyes desperate. "You don't understand. Then make me understand." He hesitated, then dropped his gaze. "There are things you don't remember, things that happened when you were gone." His words clawed at me. The way he said gone like I'd been somewhere else, somewhere unreachable. "What things?" I demanded. "What did you do, Daniel?" He looked up at me, and in that instant I saw something flicker behind his eyes, something dark, something guilty. He said quietly, "I did what I had to do." That's when I ran. I didn't even think. I turned and ran between the gravestones, my heart hammering against my ribs. The sky was gray, the clouds heavy, the ground uneven beneath my shoes. I could hear him calling my name, his voice echoing through the cemetery, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. When I finally reached the gates, I leaned against the iron bars, gasping for air. I looked back once and saw him standing where I'd left him, beside the grave, watching me with that same strange sadness that made my skin crawl. Something was terribly wrong. When I got home, everything looked the same, the front porch, the rose bushes, the creaky old door I'd meant to fix for years. But it all felt off, like I was walking through a memory instead of a home. My wedding photo still hung in the hallway, but there was dust on the frame. The calendar on the kitchen wall showed November, though the last date I remembered marking was September. And then I noticed the boxes neatly stacked near the window, my clothes, my books, my life packed away. I sank to the floor, trembling, as the realization hit me. Daniel had already started to move on. But from what? From me? From the woman buried under that willow tree? I sat on the kitchen floor for what felt like hours, staring at those boxes. Every label, written in Daniel's tidy handwriting, seemed like a goodbye note I hadn't been meant to see. Books, Margaret's, winter clothes, photos. Each one was a reminder that, in his mind, I was already gone. My hands shook as I reached for the nearest box and tore the tape open. Inside were my favorite scarves, the ones I used to wear to school. They still smelled faintly of lavender, but at the bottom of the box, something strange caught my eye. A small black envelope. My name was written across it in Daniel's handwriting. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a letter. My dearest Maggie, I don't know how to live in this house without you. I keep hearing your voice in every corner, smelling your perfume in every room. I've tried to tell myself that you're at peace, that you're free, but it feels like lying to myself. If only you knew how sorry I am for everything. Forgive me. Forgive him? For what? My tears stained the paper as I read it again and again. The words didn't sound like a grieving husband, they sounded like a confession. I folded the letter carefully, clutching it against my chest. I didn't know whether to confront him or run again. But before I could decide, I heard the crunch of tires on gravel outside. Daniel's car. Panic jolted through me. I hid the letter in my apron pocket and stood quickly, glancing around the room like a trapped animal. The sound of the key turning in the lock made my heart leap. He stepped inside, his voice calm, too calm. "Maggie," he called softly, "please, don't be afraid." I didn't answer. I watched him from the hallway, his face weary but oddly determined. There was something colder in his eyes now, something I hadn't seen before. He spotted the open box. "You opened them. Why were you packing my things?" I asked quietly. He sighed, stepping closer. "Because you were gone. The doctors, everyone said there was no coming back. I had to let you go." "You didn't let me go," I snapped. "You buried me, Daniel. You gave me a grave." He flinched, but didn't look away. I needed closure. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. Closure isn't pretending your wife is dead. Closure isn't lying to everyone, including me. "I didn't lie to you," he said sharply. "You were gone, Maggie. For 2 whole days, there was no heartbeat, no brain activity. The hospital called it brain death." I froze. "Then how am I standing here?" He hesitated. "That's what I don't understand." The room filled with silence so thick I could hear the ticking of the clock. He rubbed his temples like a man losing grip on reality. Maybe he was. Maybe I was. "After the funeral," he continued, voice trembling, "I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing you at the foot of the bed, in the garden, even in the mirror sometimes. I thought I was losing my mind. And then you came back." I stared at him. "You think I'm a ghost. I don't know what to think," he whispered. "You died, Maggie. I saw it with my own eyes." The word "died" echoed through me like a bell. Maybe that's why everything felt off, the faint buzzing in my head, the way people avoided looking at me when I'd gone into town that morning, the cashier who had paled when I handed her my card, whispering something to her coworker. Had they all seen my obituary? "I'm not dead," I said softly. "Touch me, Daniel. I'm here." He stepped forward hesitantly and reached out, his fingers brushing my hand. His skin was warm, real. He shivered. "You're cold," he murmured. "So cold." I pulled away. "I need answers, Daniel. Every one of them." He swallowed hard. "Then you need to see something. He walked toward his study, and I followed. The room smelled of whiskey and dust. Papers were stacked everywhere, and on the desk sat a folder labeled Holloway Estate. He opened it, revealing documents, death certificates, insurance forms, hospital reports, all with my name. At the top, I saw it. Certificate of Death, Margaret Ann Holloway. I stared at the official seal, the signature of the attending physician, the hospital's logo. It all looked real. This was filed a week after you passed, he said quietly. They pronounced you gone. I planned everything. The service, the burial, the flowers. Who signed this? I demanded. He hesitated, then whispered, Dr. Miles. The same doctor who treated you. Dr. Miles. My chest tightened. I remembered his voice, the way he'd held my hand before I slipped into darkness. You're safe now, Margaret, he had said. But had I been? I flipped through the folder again, and something else caught my eye, a transfer receipt from the bank. A large amount of money moved from our joint account to Daniel's name, dated 3 days after my death. The note read, Life insurance payout. Daniel, I whispered, my voice shaking. You collected money on my death? He looked away, shame flickering across his face. I didn't plan it that way. I thought you were gone. I couldn't work. I was drowning in debt. I needed it. My stomach turned. You took my death as an opportunity? It wasn't like that, he shouted. I was lost, Maggie. You don't know what it's like to lose the only person who ever made life bearable. And yet, I said bitterly, you didn't hesitate to cash in. He dropped his head into his hands. I wish I could take it back. God, I wish I could. But I didn't believe him, not fully. Something about his tone felt rehearsed. His eyes darted to the window, as if checking for someone outside. That's when I noticed the second car parked near the fence. A small blue sedan I didn't recognize. Who's here? I asked. He stiffened. No one. I walked toward the window, but he moved fast, too fast, grabbing my wrist. Maggie, don't. The grip was rough this time, not the gentle hand of the man I'd loved for 40 years. Whose car is that, Daniel? He hesitated. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Then a voice floated from the porch. A woman's voice. Daniel? Are you okay in there? The sound made the blood drain from my face. It was her, Rebecca, my former nurse from the hospital. I turned to him slowly. Rebecca? I whispered. He closed his eyes, defeated. She's been helping me since you passed. I stepped back. Helping you how? Before he could answer, the front door creaked open, and Rebecca appeared, her face paling the instant she saw me. She looked like she'd seen an apparition. Maybe, to her, I was one. Oh my God, she gasped. Daniel, you didn't tell me she... Get out, I said quietly, my voice trembling with fury. Both of you. Maggie, please, Daniel started. Get out. Rebecca stumbled back, eyes wide, clutching her purse like a shield. Daniel tried to approach, but the look in my eyes stopped him cold. They left together, closing the door softly behind them. The silence that followed was unbearable. I looked down at the letter still clenched in my hand and whispered, Forgive you? Not yet. Outside, the wind howled against the house, rattling the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell chimed, slow and mournful, and for the first time since I'd woken from that hospital bed, I wondered if Daniel had buried the right woman, or if someone else had taken my place in that grave. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my old armchair, clutching a cup of cold tea, staring at the flickering candlelight that cast shadows across the living room walls. Every tick of the clock seemed to echo through the house, like a countdown to something terrible. Outside, the wind moaned, brushing the curtains just enough to make them sway like ghostly figures. I kept expecting Daniel to come back, but he didn't. And part of me was grateful for that. I needed time to think, to breathe. But mostly, I needed to remember. The last thing I recalled clearly before the heart attack was standing at the sink, washing dishes, humming to myself. Daniel had been in the garden trimming the rose bushes. Then there was a sharp pain, a blinding light, and then darkness. I remembered drifting through something, not quite death, not quite sleep. I heard whispers, not kind ones, voices talking about me, not to me, and one of them was Rebecca's. When dawn finally crept in, painting the house in weak gray light, I decided I couldn't live another minute surrounded by questions. I needed to go back to where it all began, the hospital. I dressed quietly, wrapped my coat around me, and drove there. The same building I'd once worked near for years as a volunteer, now looming like a monument to secrets. The receptionist looked up when I entered, her smile faltering. "Can I help you?" "I need to speak to Dr. Miles," I said. "It's urgent." She hesitated. "Dr. Miles isn't in today. He's been on extended leave since October. October, the month I died." My pulse quickened. "Do you know where I can reach him?" She shook her head quickly. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not allowed to share personal details." I forced a polite smile. "Thank you." As I turned to leave, a familiar face appeared in the hallway. Nurse Helen, one of the few who had always been kind to me. She gasped softly when she saw me, her clipboard slipping from her hands. "Mrs. Holloway?" she whispered. "My God, it really is you!" Her reaction told me everything I needed to know. They all thought I was dead. "Helen," I said quietly, taking her trembling hand, "I need to know what happened to me." She glanced around nervously, then motioned for me to follow her into an empty break room. When the door closed behind us, she whispered, "They said you never woke up. We held a memorial right here in the chapel. Dr. Miles declared you gone after 2 days, but then everything got strange." "Strange how?" "There were rumors," she said, voice trembling. "Some staff said, Doctor, Miles was pressured to sign off quickly, that your husband, Mr. Holloway, was desperate to finalize the paperwork. There was talk of money involved." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Money?" She nodded. "And after you were declared, Rebecca took over your file. She said she'd been instructed to handle the transfer. But when I asked what that meant, she just said it was confidential. Transfer to where?" Helen bit her lip. "To a private facility, somewhere off record." I gripped the table to steady myself. So I wasn't even buried right away. No, she whispered. You were moved the same night. I remember because the paperwork had to be signed again under your husband's name. I felt like the ground beneath me was dissolving. Why would he do that? She looked at me, pity softening her expression. You need to be careful, Mrs. Holloway. Whatever happened wasn't just a mistake. People don't come back from being dead, and yet here you are. Her words echoed in my ears as I left the hospital. The morning sun glared too bright, the world too loud, my thoughts tangled with fear and fury. Daniel hadn't just mourned me, he'd moved me, hidden me, maybe even sold me. I drove straight home, my hands white on the steering wheel. The house loomed like a stranger's when I arrived. I expected silence, but as I stepped inside, I heard a faint thump upstairs. Someone was there. I crept up the staircase, my breath shallow. The door to our bedroom was slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack. I pushed it open slowly. Inside, Daniel stood by the dresser, holding a small wooden box. His eyes went wide when he saw me. Maggie, I cut him off. What were you doing at the hospital? What did you and Rebecca do to me? He froze, his hand tightening around the box. You've been there. Yes, and I know everything. He shook his head slowly. No, you don't. I stepped closer. You had me declared dead when I wasn't. You moved me to some private facility. Why, Daniel? What did you do to me? His jaw clenched, his eyes darting toward the window again. You wouldn't understand. Then make me understand. He slammed the box shut, startling me. I did it to save you, he shouted, voice breaking. You were suffering, Maggie. They said your brain was gone, but there was a program experimental. Rebecca found it. They promised a chance, a way to bring you back. I blinked. Bring me back? From what? He took a trembling breath. From the edge, from death. I stared at him, my mind spiraling. You let them experiment on me? It wasn't like that, he said, stepping forward. They said it was safe. They said they could preserve you until they found a way to restart everything. And then one day, they called me. They said it worked, that you were breathing again. My chest ached as his words sank in. You mean I was part of some experiment? His silence was answer enough. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. You played God, Daniel. I saved you, he cried. You're here because of me. No, I whispered. I'm here in spite of you. For a long time neither of us spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking slow, relentless. Then, faintly, a strange humming filled the room. I frowned. It was coming from the wooden box in his hands. What's in there? I asked. He hesitated, then slowly opened it. Inside was a small silver locket, one I didn't recognize, connected to a thin black device that pulsed with a soft blue light. It's part of the procedure, he said quietly. They said it monitors your vitals, keeps you stable. I reached out to touch it, but the moment my fingers brushed the metal, a jolt shot through me, sharp and cold, like electricity under my skin. I stumbled back, gasping. Daniel rushed forward. "Careful! It's linked to you, your system. If it's damaged, I don't know what might happen." I stared at him, horrified. "My system? What are you talking about?" He swallowed. "You're not the same, Maggie. You haven't been since that day." I looked at my reflection in the mirror across the room. Pale skin, eyes slightly duller than before. My pulse faint, barely there. And suddenly I understood. "Am I even alive?" I whispered. He didn't answer. I took a step back, shaking my head. "What did you let them do to me, Daniel?" Tears welled in his eyes. "I couldn't lose you, not again." I turned and fled down the stairs, his voice echoing behind me. "Maggie, please! You don't understand. It's keeping you alive." Outside, the sky had darkened, thunder rolling in the distance. The wind howled through the trees as I ran to the car. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to get away from him, from the house, from the truth. But as I started the engine, something flickered in my mind. A voice, soft, mechanical, system malfunction, stabilization required. I froze. The sound hadn't come from the car. It came from me. The voice inside my head was faint, like the whisper of a machine buried deep under my skin. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating, that grief and confusion had finally broken me. But then it came again clearer this time. System malfunction, stabilization required. The words didn't belong to me, yet they pulsed through my thoughts like an echo from another world. My heart, or whatever was left of it, hammered. I pressed a trembling hand against my chest, half expecting to feel a device there, but all I felt was a steady, unnatural rhythm, too steady, too mechanical. I drove without direction, rain starting to patter against the windshield, my breath fogging the glass. Every bump in the road felt amplified, every flash of lightning a warning. When I finally stopped, I realized where I'd gone back to the cemetery. Back to her. Or was it me? The air was heavy with rain, the sky bruised purple and gray. I walked through the mud, my shoes sinking with each step, until I reached the grave under the willow, my grave. The lilies Daniel had left were now flattened by wind and water, their white petals clinging to the stone like ghosts refusing to leave. I knelt down, brushing the mud away from the inscription. "Margaret Ann Holloway, beloved wife and teacher." The same name, the same life. But if I was here, then who was buried beneath? Lightning split the sky. I flinched, and that's when I saw it. The soil near the headstone looked disturbed, slightly sunken, as if it had been touched recently. My fingers dug into the wet dirt, clawing until they hit something hard. A piece of fabric, my old blue nightgown. The one I'd been wearing the night of my heart attack. My vision blurred. I stumbled back, mud on my hands, tears mixing with the rain. "Dear God," I whispered, "what did they do to me?" Behind me a car door slammed. I turned, heart pounding, and saw a familiar figure holding an umbrella. Rebecca. She stood there, her face pale, her eyes wide, not with guilt but fear. "You shouldn't be here." she said softly. I rose slowly. That's what Daniel said. She sighed. He told me you'd find your way here eventually. He said you'd feel it. Feel what? I demanded. The connection, she murmured, between what you were and what you are now. The words made me dizzy. Tell me the truth, Rebecca, all of it. She hesitated, her grip tightening on the umbrella handle. When you were brought in that night, you were gone. Flatlined. But Daniel wouldn't accept it. He begged Dr. Miles to try an unapproved protocol, a neural restoration experiment. It wasn't meant for public use, the doctor warned him. Warned him about what? That even if it worked, you wouldn't be the same. I stared at her, the cold wind whipping my hair into my face. And he agreed? She nodded. He signed everything. The contract, the waivers. The procedure was supposed to stimulate your brain with an artificial memory net, a system that could reactivate cognitive pathways and restart the body through nanocellular integration. I blinked, struggling to process the words. You're saying I'm some kind of hybrid, she finished quietly. Not machine, not fully human. The program restored your consciousness, but it relies on external stabilization. That's what the device is for the locket. It regulates your systems. I felt sick. You experimented on me. I tried to stop him, Rebecca said quickly, but he was obsessed. He said he couldn't live without you. When you finally woke up, something was different. You didn't respond like before. You looked at him, but your eyes, your pulse, your temperature, everything was off. Dr. Miles panicked. He said the integration had split. Part of you had survived, part hadn't. Split? I whispered. What do you mean, split? Rebecca swallowed. There was another body. The rain seemed to stop for a moment. Another, the one you were buried in. The organic half that didn't wake up. The experiment didn't just revive your consciousness, it copied it. Half stayed in the body, half was transferred into the artificial neural system. He couldn't accept it, so he buried the remains quietly. I stumbled backward, my mind spinning. So the woman in that grave, she's me? She was you, Rebecca whispered. But not any more. I pressed my hands to my face, feeling the rain, the chill, the undeniable pulse beneath my skin, and for the first time, I wasn't sure if it was truly mine. Why didn't you tell me this? Daniel swore me to secrecy. He said if you found out, it would destroy you. But now, her voice broke, now I think he's afraid you'll destroy him. Thunder cracked overhead, and for a moment I saw the terror in her eyes. She wasn't lying, she was scared. What happened to Dr. Miles? I asked. She looked down. He disappeared, weeks after the procedure. Some say he went into hiding. Others think Daniel made sure he couldn't talk. My breath caught. You're saying, Daniel, I don't know, she whispered, but he's not the man you remember. A distant sound cut her off the low hum of an engine. Headlights sliced through the rain as a black car approached, stopping at the cemetery gate. Rebecca's face drained of color. He's here, she whispered. You need to go. Before I could react, she pressed something cold into my hand, a small USB drive. "Everything's on this," she said. "The experiment, the signatures, the doctor's notes. If he finds it, he'll destroy it." "Rebecca, come with me," I begged. She shook her head. "He'll follow me." "You're the one he wants to control." Then she turned and ran, vanishing into the storm just as Daniel's figure emerged from the car, umbrella in hand. He spotted me instantly. "Maggie," he called, his voice eerily calm. "You shouldn't be out in this weather." I clutched the USB in my palm, my knuckles white. "You lied to me, Daniel. You let them turn me into something I don't even understand." He stepped closer, his face half lit by lightning. "I did it for us." "No," I said, shaking. "You did it for you." He smiled, then a hollow, desperate smile. "You wouldn't be here without me. And she wouldn't be dead without you," I said, pointing to the grave. For the first time his mask cracked. He looked at the tombstone, then back at me, his expression twisting into something between guilt and madness. "That's not death, Maggie. That's just what's left of what couldn't stay. You're what mattered." The rain poured harder, lightning flashing, illuminating the locket on his chest, the same device as mine, glowing faintly blue. My breath caught. "You have one too?" He nodded slowly. "They linked us. 2 systems, 1 connection. If yours fails, mine does too." My heart pounded. "Then maybe that's exactly what should happen." "Maggie, please," he said, reaching for me. "Don't do this." But I was already backing away, clutching the USB close to my heart. I didn't know how much of me was real anymore. Blood or wires, love or illusion. But I knew one thing with chilling certainty. Whatever I was, Daniel had built it from his obsession, his grief, and his lies. And I was done belonging to him. I drove through the storm until the wipers could no longer keep up with the rain. The road ahead blurred into silver ribbons under the headlights, and for a moment I thought the world itself was melting around me. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel, the USB drive burning cold in my pocket like a secret that wanted to scream. I ended up at the old cottage by the lake, our first home, long abandoned. Daniel and I had bought it when we were newly married, before life hardened us. The place still stood, sagging under years of neglect. I parked beneath the leaning oak and hurried inside, pushing the swollen door open with my shoulder. The air smelled of rot and dust and old memories. I found an oil lamp, struck a match, and lit it. Its trembling glow cast ghosts on the peeling wallpaper. The lake shimmered darkly beyond the window, thunder rumbling across its surface. I set the USB on the table beside my laptop, the one Daniel had packed away with my things, and powered it up. The screen flickered, humming faintly, before opening the files. There were dozens of documents. Some medical, others handwritten scans. I opened the first folder labeled Project Aurora Subject M. H. My stomach turned as I scrolled. The first entry was a log written by Dr. Miles. Day 1 patient Margaret Holloway. Cardiac arrest at 22:47. Flatline sustained beyond recovery threshold. Husband requested immediate inclusion in Aurora trial. Neural mapping initiated. Conscious transfer successful at 3:12. Conscious transfer. I kept reading, hands trembling. Day 2, subject shows minimal brainwave activity, synthetic net responding, secondary vessel prepared for partial integration, cellular reboot pending. Day 3, split detected, organic brain refusing merge, synthetic consciousness forming separate identity. Husband insists continuation. Separate identity. They hadn't brought me back, they'd copied me. One version had died, the other, me, was something else. I felt my breath quicken as I clicked the next video file. The screen filled with grainy footage, me pale, motionless, on a hospital bed. Daniel beside me, holding my hand, whispering words I couldn't make out. Behind him, Rebecca adjusted machines while Dr. Miles typed notes. Then, suddenly, my body jerked. Eyes opened. I gasped, a haunting, mechanical inhale. The monitors screamed to life. But the woman in the video didn't look like me. Her movements were too sharp, her pupils dilated unnaturally. When she spoke, her voice was hollow, robotic. "Daniel?" He had smiled through his tears. "You're back." And that was when I realized the truth. I had died. What stood here now, breathing and shaking under the lamplight, was the echo of me, the programmed memory of a woman Daniel couldn't let go of. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart racing. The voice inside my head returned, cold and calm, system instability increasing, neural drift detected. I covered my ears, but it didn't stop. My reflection in the dark window flickered slightly, like a film reel catching fire. I pressed my palm to the glass, watching as my skin shimmered faintly beneath the lamplight, tiny veins of silver pulsing under the surface. I wasn't just rebuilt, I was wired. Suddenly, footsteps crunched outside. Headlights flashed against the cottage wall. My breath caught Daniel. I turned off the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. The door creaked open, and his silhouette filled the doorway. "Maggie," he said softly, "you shouldn't have run." "Stay where you are," I warned. "I know everything," he sighed, stepping closer. The lightning behind him illuminated his face, wet, desperate, haunted. "Then you know why I had to do it. You were gone, and I couldn't breathe without you. I built you because I couldn't live with that hole. You built me," I whispered. "You talk about me like a project." He flinched. "No, like a miracle." "I'm not a miracle, Daniel. I'm your obsession." He took another step, voice trembling. "You're my wife, my Maggie. I can fix this, I swear. The instability is temporary if I resync the link." I shook my head. "You mean if you control me again?" The air thickened between us. Rain battered the roof. Thunder rolled. And for a heartbeat I saw him for what he truly was, a man who had traded love for possession. "I have the files," I said quietly. "All of them. The recordings, the signatures. I'm taking them to the authorities." His expression darkened. "You can't. They'll destroy you." "Maybe that's better than living like this." He lunged suddenly, snatching for the laptop. We struggled, the lamp crashing to the floor and shattering. Sparks flared, smoke rising as lightning flashed through the window. I shoved him back, breathless. "Stop! Maggie, listen to me!" he shouted. "You're linked to me." If you shut the system down, it kills us both. Maybe that's justice, I said. He stared at me, soaked, trembling. I did it out of love. Love doesn't dig graves and fill them with lies. Something shifted in his face, then panic, raw and unguarded. He reached inside his coat and pulled out a small remote, identical to the one in the video. A red light blinked. If you go, I lose everything. Don't make me do this. Daniel, don't. He pressed the button. Pain ripped through me, white-hot, blinding. I screamed, collapsing to my knees as the same voice echoed in my skull. System override. Synchronization initiated. My vision split. Images of the hospital, the procedure, my lifeless body flashing, merging. He was trying to resync the link, to drag me back under his control. No, I gasped. I crawled toward the laptop, reaching for the keyboard through tears and static. My fingers found the USB. One click, one keystroke, delete all. The files vanished, line by line, as Daniel shouted my name. The device sparked in his hand. The light on his chest flickered violently. Maggie, stop! You'll... The remote exploded in his grip, throwing him backward. He hit the wall hard, sliding down, motionless. The air reeked of ozone. My body trembled, the glow beneath my skin pulsing erratically. I crawled toward him, barely able to see. Daniel, his eyes fluttered open, glazed with tears. You were my heart, he whispered. I just wanted you to stay. Then his head fell sideways, and the light on his locket went dark. The silence that followed was unbearable. No hum, no rain, just emptiness. I felt the cold creeping into me, the mechanical pulse fading, flickering. My reflection in the window shimmered again, and for the briefest second, I saw the woman I used to be, smiling softly, human and warm. Maybe this is peace, I whispered. The world blurred, my breath slowing. The last thing I heard before darkness took me was the voice inside my mind, softer now, almost tender. System release complete. Goodbye, Margaret. Then nothing. When I opened my eyes again, morning light poured through the shattered window. The rain had stopped. Daniel was gone, his body, the car, everything. Only his wedding ring lay on the floor beside a faint scorch mark. I picked it up, cold and heavy in my palm. Outside, the lake was calm, mist curling over its surface. Birds sang, faint and distant. I didn't know if I was alive or something caught between worlds, but the weight in my chest felt real. I whispered to the quiet room, You couldn't keep me, Daniel. You never could. And as I stepped out into the dawn, leaving the ring on the table behind me, I felt something new, something fragile and human flutter back into being. Freedom. The sunrise felt wrong that morning, too bright, too gentle for what had just happened. The world outside the cottage glowed gold, the rain-soaked earth steaming as the light touched it. But inside me, everything was quiet, too quiet. I sat on the porch steps, barefoot, my dress damp from the night's storm. The mist from the lake curled around the trees like fingers, soft and slow. I kept expecting the mechanical hum to return, the faint whisper of that synthetic voice, but it was gone. Only silence remained. My chest rose and fell on its own now, uneven, trembling, human. Daniel's car was gone. No sign of him on the road, no footprints on the mud, as if the night had swallowed him whole. The only proof he'd ever been there was his wedding ring, which I'd left on the table beside the broken lamp. The sunlight caught it through the window, flashing once before dimming again, like a heartbeat that had finally stopped. I should have called someone, the police, an ambulance, anyone. But what would I even say? My husband reanimated me using an illegal experiment, and now he's vanished. They'd lock me away. Maybe they should have, but for the first time in months, I felt something that wasn't confusion or fear. I felt free. Still, freedom comes with ghosts. I went back to the cemetery that afternoon. The storm had passed, leaving puddles that reflected the sky like shards of glass. The willow tree swayed gently over my grave, its branches whispering secrets to the wind. The soil I'd disturbed was smooth again. Someone had been there, covered it, tidied it, made it whole. On the tombstone, a new line had been added. Fresh engraving, the letters still sharp. Rest now, my love. I traced the words with my fingers. He'd done this before leaving. Even in his madness, Daniel couldn't resist one last act of devotion or guilt. "I'm not ready to rest," I whispered. I sat there for a long time, watching the sun dip lower behind the trees, thinking about the woman buried beneath. Maybe she was me once. Maybe she was the part of me that believed in simple love, the version of Margaret who trusted, who forgave too easily. That version had been laid to rest. What rose in her place was something else, someone stronger, someone real in a way the machines couldn't define. Before leaving, I placed a small wildflower on the grave. Not lilies, not roses, just a simple white bloom from the grass nearby. "For what we both lost," I said quietly. "For what I found." As I turned to go, a figure stood near the gate. For one heart-stopping moment, I thought it was Daniel. But it wasn't. It was Rebecca. She looked different, tired, worn down, but alive. She approached slowly, her eyes full of something between fear and relief. "You made it out," she said softly. "I did," I replied. She nodded, glancing at the grave. "They'll come looking for you, you know. The company, the people behind Project Aurora. Daniel wasn't the only one obsessed with bringing you back." I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "What do they want?" "What they always wanted," she said. "Proof that it worked." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Then I'll make sure they never get it." Rebecca reached into her coat pocket and handed me a small envelope. "This is everything that's left Dr. Miles's final letter. He sent it to me before he disappeared." I unfolded it with trembling hands. The handwriting was shaky but clear. "To whoever survives this madness, remember that what defines a life isn't the beating of a heart, but the choices that echo after it stops. If the subject awakens, let her choose her own ending. Don't cage her again. Let her live or let her go." Tears blurred my vision. I folded the letter carefully and placed it over the tombstone. "He understood," I murmured, "more than Daniel ever could." Rebecca hesitated. "What will you do now?" I looked out across the cemetery, at the distant horizon turning amber. "Live," I said simply. "However long this body lets me." She nodded, her eyes shining. "If you ever need help, I'll find you," I said, smiling faintly. "But I think this time I need to find myself first." We parted ways at the gate. She drove off, leaving me standing under the dying light, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and memory. As night fell again, I returned to the cottage one last time. I gathered what little I had: a coat, a notebook, a few photographs from the packed boxes. Then I stood before the mirror. My reflection stared back, steady and strange. The silver shimmer beneath my skin had faded to nothing. My pulse fluttered weakly, but it was mine. I whispered to the mirror, "I forgive you," unsure if I meant myself, or Daniel, or the woman I used to be. Maybe all of them. The reflection smiled faintly, almost sad. Then, for just a heartbeat, I saw her, the other Margaret, standing behind me, gentle and still, the same soft smile on her face. She reached out, her ghostly fingers brushing my shoulder, and for the first time I didn't flinch. "Rest," she seemed to whisper. And then she was gone. I packed the last box, blew out the candle, and stepped into the cool night. The stars were sharp and clear above the lake, and the water rippled with silver light. I followed the old trail down to the dock, where Daniel and I once spent summer evenings watching the sunset. The wood creaked beneath my feet, familiar and forgiving. I took off my shoes, let the cold water touch my toes, and breathed in deeply. For the first time since I'd woken up in that hospital bed, my chest didn't ache, my mind didn't hum with static. The world was quiet, whole. I didn't know what I was anymore, half woman, half machine, or maybe something in between. But I knew what I wasn't. I wasn't a ghost, and I wasn't his creation. I was Margaret Ann Holloway, teacher, dreamer, wife, survivor. The lake reflected the moon perfectly, as if holding two worlds, the one I came from and the one I was walking toward. I whispered to the wind, "Goodbye, Daniel." Then I turned away from the water and walked toward the dark line of trees, the path leading away from everything I'd lost and toward everything I might still find. The night swallowed me gently, the sound of the lake fading behind me until there was nothing left but the rhythm of my steps and the faint, steady beating of something that felt, at last, like a real heart. And that's how my story ends, not in a grave, not in a machine, but in the quiet miracle of beginning again.